Something that is important to me is my childhood in Zambia, and I was and where I lived in New Hampshire. In we had mangoes, guavas, lemons, bananas, pawpaws, and we also had bougainvilleas and hibiscus as flowering shrubs. Well, one's more tree, more sort of trees than shrubs, but anyway, and also important was we all went down to my grandfather's workplace at Stork Shaft on a Sunday, and we saw copper coming up. None of us went underground, but we saw coming up and going via the conveyor belt, because we'd also go and travel the length of the conveyor belt to the smelter. Well, we didn't see the smelter. We couldn't go inside the smelters because where it is purified, and the concentrators next door, because being too dangerous. Then after it's done that, it's put on rails and gone to Zambia, gone to Ndola to be refined, and probably to England as ingots in use as conductors for electricity, probably, as part of. And also, when I was growing up, I spent time in what was then Southern Rhodesia, in the capital, Salisbury, in the bunkhouse which my stepfather and my mother were living in, because I lived with my grandparents, and there were rocks outside the house. I used to scramble on the rocks, and of course it was very bushy in those, both in Zambia and Rhodesia in those times. Although in Rhodesia we lived more in the cultivated part, but it was very thick bush, and when you went down to Rhodesia, we went through Chirundu, and we were sprayed for so that we didn't get sleeping sickness, which is brought by the tsetse fly. I was a very young girl when I was taken at Rhodes' grave in the Matopo Hills. Then when my grandparents retired, we went down to South Africa, and we lived 11 miles out of Johannesburg, in Edenvale, in a little place, in a little suburb called Glendower. And when it wasn't too busy, I used to go round to my Auntie Pamela's house, and I used to spend a lot of time round the house. Or I could walk round that part of the area. It was near a golf course as well. My auntie Pamela bred cats, Persian cats. I had a half Persian called Beauty. Of course, lots of things were not similar, like you couldn't mix with people very well in South Africa. It was very delineated where whites, coloureds, Asians and Africans lived. The whites never went into Soweto. We weren't allowed to anyway. Not unless you were working there and you could get special permits. Not ordinary white people ever went into Soweto or saw the way most Africans must have lived in Soweto, in the hostels. Of course it was gold mining again in Johannesburg. And there were plenty of dumps as a reminder. I suppose a similar process is followed whether it's gold or copper. But I think you go deeper underground. I think one of the Rand mines is the deepest mine in the world. I think it's West Driefontein, if I remember rightly. Mostly in Africa, you don't see a lot of disabled people because disablement is not really recognised either in the white or the black community, and they don't like. They think it's very strange. Any disablement, especially people with disabilities or learning disabilities. Because probably Africans would have a hard enough life anyway. They wouldn't survive with learning disabilities because of the kind of life they would lead in the less urban areas of the place, in more like the typical African village, which many whites weren't privileged to see, and they didn't know how Africans really, whether it was in South Africa or Zambia, before Zambia became independent, they didn't really know how Africans lived in the townships they lived in. The difference in attitudes to disability in England are that you can get occupational therapists and other therapists to help with the learning disabilities and other disabilities, of course. People can live a more fulfilled life because they can go to college and things.